Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are looking at another Devblog for update Red Skies, and this is for the Dardo IFV, a long-awaited Italian vehicle that is coming to the game. There's a ton of really cool stuff for Italy this update. You have the Dante Alighieri, which is a vehicle that a lot of people have been looking forward to from the battleship point of view. You've got the Dardo, which of course is the IFV that a lot of people have also been asking for, and also the Sagittario 2, which is a lovely machine as well. One of my definite thoughts when it comes to the people who really care about the Italian community or the Italian vehicles in War Thunder is they're incredibly passionate, is one way of putting it, about their vehicles. And it's nice to see them get represented, and hopefully I don't see any complaining for a few months from them. But I'm sure that won't happen, because there's even people now asking for even better variants of the Leopard 2 to counter the T80, so I suppose anything is possible. Anyway, let's get into the history of the Dardo IFV. The Dardo development started all the way back in the 1970s, even though this is a 1990s vehicle. Basically, the Italian military realized that they needed a new form of IFV to be able to replace the M113 APC that was in service at the time. So engineers at Otto Melara, who are behind a lot of the Italian ground vehicles that you see in the later part of the game, they came up with a design similar to that of the Soviet BMPs and built a wooden mock-up of them. And although Otto Melara projected a start of production by the end of the decade, other commitments actually prevented this, and in 1980 they once again picked up development of the project, and two versions were derived from the original design. And by 1985 the first prototypes of the VCC-80 were constructed and subsequently took part in army trials the following year. However, as the Italian military was pursuing development of several projects at the same time, and on an increasingly limited budget as the Cold War drew to a close, the procurement of the VCC-80 was put on hold. We have a ton of those projects in the game already, showing how much Otto Melara was actually doing. They were really pumping out the, not really production, but just experimental ideas in general. And then during the 1990s, the VCC-80 underwent several redesigns in order to make it more suitable for modern requirements. Obviously, developing a vehicle over this period of time means that it will have to be modernized. And in 1997, the Italian government finally approved the production of the vehicle, and a final decision to procure 200 vehicles was made by the end of the decade. So this development was around about 15 to 20 years, showing how much work, time, and effort had gone into it. And once production began, the VCC-80 was officially renamed to its service name, which of course is the Dardo, and this was christened with the first production vehicle entering service in May 2002. The last of the 200 Dardos to be produced was delivered in June of 2006, completing the Italian Army's fleet of IFVs, and despite its drawn-out and troublesome development, the Dardo continually faithfully served the Italian armed forces even to this day. It is still in service, which makes sense because of its development, and it's actually taken part in operations in Iraq and also Afghanistan over that time period. So the Dardo will be coming into the game for Italy at rank 6, and it will be coming after the M113 TOW that the Italians already have in the game. And I've been looking forward to the Dardo for quite a long time. Personally, I really enjoy light vehicles. I really enjoy fast vehicles or lightly armored ones, which also have scouting and also have a lot of utility to them. The only downside to these vehicles is not actually the the ground vehicles that they come up against, because sometimes you can feel outmatched on the ground, against MBTs. But the thing is, you have so many different unique ways of fighting them, including scouting them, waiting for allied assistance, using your ATGMs, or maybe repositioning with access to smoke, that it normally isn't too much of an issue. The issue with vehicles like this around their current BRs is AGMs. It's pretty much as simple as that. If you first spawn one of these IFVs and you have, let's say, a really good 5 to 7 to 8 minutes, you're going to get AGM'd by somebody, whether it's the British with the Scimitar, the Americans with the A4B and E, or the Germans with the G91s, or even maybe your own teammates with the G91R4 Premium. So it's an unfortunate thing in the game right now where you can feel kind of cheated in a way, where you can do really well on the ground and then you just end up getting bonked by an AGM. It's something, unfortunately, over the last few weeks that I've had to deal with quite extensively, so it is definitely on the brain. So when it comes to the armament on this thing, it actually has a fully stabilized 25mm Oerlikon KBA. They've also given it access to not just APDS as a rank 1 modification, but also APFSDS as a rank 4 modification. So that's actually going to be really nice. It's also got a really good fire rate. It's got a higher fire rate than the Bradley M3A3, which at least on the dev server it shared the same VR as at 9.0, which was really nice. And generally the vehicle itself is in a much better place when it comes to its main armament, just because of that fire rate. It doesn't have a ton of ammunition, but generally it has enough to be able to get the job done, and that's all you really need. Flanking the 25mm, it also has access to 2 tow launchers on either side of the turret. These fire tow 2s, and also they fire tow 2Bs. So good penetration on the standard tow 2s, and if you don't know what the tow 2Bs are, they're the top attack down missiles that you see from a lot of vehicles such as the CM25, the M3A3 Bradley, and even the SDRF Bill. And for me, the top attack ones are very up and down, I think is the way I would describe them, and well, literally and metaphorically. The fact is a lot of the times when it comes to the top-down stuff, they get triggered by things which don't really matter on vehicles. They'll get triggered by machine guns, meaning that all of the explosive mass will go into the machine gun. They'll get triggered by a track, so therefore you can't hit the rest of the vehicle. And there's a lot of vehicles which they're just oddly laid out, so therefore it is kind of hard to kill them. But generally, when it comes to the tow 2Bs, normally they're not too bad on stuff like the IFVs because you get 2 of them. And one thing that the tow 2B is very good at is maiming a vehicle, so killing maybe 2 crew or knocking out a turret, but it ain't great at just one-shotting them in the face. So having 2 of them in quick succession can really help your case annihilating stuff, and it's why the Bradley with its ATGMs has been very powerful over the last little bit when it comes to the vehicle itself. This machine is also powered by a 520 horsepower diesel engine. This is pretty standard for a 23.5 ton vehicle. I would actually say it's slightly higher compared to a lot of other vehicles we've seen in the game, and it should be able to motor around at 70 kilometers an hour if you throw it off a cliff. So overall, it's going to be mobile, it's going to be very IFV-y, I think is the way to put it, and also it should have access to some nice mobility in the form of acceleration. The other thing as well is it does get thermals. At least on the dev server, the gunner site had very nice thermals. It looked absolutely beautiful through them. And also, we'll have to see if it gets commander's thermals or not. At least when I tested it on the first dev server, I wasn't able to get to it on the second dev server. It didn't have access to the commander mode, but I'm sure it will do. Just like how the T80B VM didn't have access to a commander view, I'm sure the Dardo will as well. It's just not something which is put in. But I'm just really happy to see this vehicle. The fact is, the Italians have a lot of really fun light vehicles when it comes to like the Centaros or the sedans, or even the automatic, since that is obviously quite a light vehicle. And it's nice to see the trend continued with the Dardo. They have a pretty unique way of playing around this BR, the Italians, the Centauro Romor, you know, the Ariete P, and also stuff like the OF40 Mark II. The OF40 Mark II is just a fat Leopard and very fun to use. And then they also have the Leopard 1A5, which is coming in at the same BR as this. The lineup of Centauro Romor, Dardo, and Leopard 1A5 sounds incredibly good to me. This thing also gets access to an LWSLR, so you'll know if you're getting laser range found, or you'll know if a helicopter has targeted you, and that is very important. At least it did have on the dev server, so, you know, take that with a pinch of salt. But I would say this is definitely one of the vehicles I'm looking forward to playing in the future. One of the only issues I would say with this is, once again, the fact it's a light vehicle, the fact that AGMs exist, and the fact that it's very easy to kill these things now because of the overpressure mechanic in that regard. In a straight fight-on-fight, in a straight one-on-one fight on the ground, I think it would be very fun to play, but you're always going to have to make sure to check to the skies to see if either a helicopter is coming or a plane, which you won't be able to do too much about. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank BRFC, Swollen Ostrich, Teddy, John Ryman, Universe, Conte Baraka, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Lafouche, Barine, and Samuel Schlick for supporting the channel.